I'm Janet Unterschlag, and I am here with you for the next hour. So I have a question from Buletsani, who simply says, how do I tackle a cartoon? So that isn't exactly helpful. Please won't you, when you send through your questions, say, I battle with facial expression, or I battled with this particular paper, or I don't know how to deal with font, or there's this question which says, what is the difference between this and this? Or how does the character change? Or why does the facial expression change from this frame to that frame? Tell me what it is that's causing you a problem, because otherwise I feel as if I'm in the dark. Nevertheless, Mbali has found a cartoon for me, and this is what she's found. So that's the cartoon. Let's start with the question so we know what we're meant to be doing. Refer to frame 1. Okay, so they being the examiners, tell you the frames. They are really worried that you might get the frame wrong and then you'd answer the question on the wrong frame, and that really isn't what they want. So they're not testing, can you count 1, 2, 3, 4? So they number the frames for you. Fine. Choose the correct answer to complete the following sentence. So we have facial expression. So you know from emojis what facial expression is. It indicates, is that the problem? It shows that she is. We should know what angry means. Anxious is worried. Annoyed is irritated, so not quite as strong as angry. And aggressive is somebody who's about to attack you. Okay, so with that, we come back to frame 1. We're told Amy got another college email. It's from Waverley, my #1 choice. Oh my God, I can't open it. And this person says, I got it. Then reading, dear Amy, we regret to inform you. She says, what? And we've got a question mark and an exclamation mark, and we've got sob. That you'll be leaving home to attend our school this fall. And gasp, oh, ah! And then we've got this coming off from outside the frame. So Amy is somewhere over here, gasping and sobbing and doing her thing. And the two of them, their admission staff has a cruel sense of humor, and actually that was me, seemed funny in my head. So we realize that's her father, or at least we assume it's her father and her mother. We're told the girl is Amy, the man is her father. Oh, good, we got that right. The woman is her mother. It explains what that means, and it tells you that fall refers to autumn. And I suppose they could tell you that college is really what we would call university. I know we do talk about colleges. Okay, lovely. So her facial expression. She's holding the phone. She's got this expression. Eyes, sort of big eyes like that. And her pupils are down here. Her little nose, and then the mouth looks like that. So, which one of those 4? Her facial expression shows that she is. What would you choose? Right, so I suppose the problem is if you don't know what anxious, annoyed, or aggressive mean. But I would go with anxious. She's worried. She doesn't know what they're going to tell her. What do we see here? She gets another email. What does that suggest about the one she's already had? So give 2 reasons for your answer. So why would she be anxious? So I've already asked you, if she gets another college email, what does it suggest about the previous email? So here you might say that maybe the previous email was a rejection. That's possible. But what we see that's really important here is that it's her #1 choice. So what you could argue is that this is the college she is most eager to attend. Therefore, she'd be very disappointed. Disappointed, not disappointed. She'd be very disappointed if she didn't get in. So it says 2 reasons. Let's look for a third reason. Obviously, she has applied to more than one college. I don't know, I'm just putting X colleges. She's applied to more than one college, and she might not be very happy with the previous response. So we don't know how many colleges she's applied to. Maybe she got a response from her number 4 choice, and she doesn't really want to go to that one. All right, so you're looking for 2 reasons. So make sure that you explain 2 reasons quite carefully. Then write that in full. We know it's oh my God, so that's fine. We can just do that. Then why is the word sob written in bold font in frame 2? So now we come again to the issue of what does sob mean? You should be able to see, even if you don't know the word, from the 3 little, I don't know, thingamabobses that are around the word sob. We've got that word, and then we've got like, whoa, not quite, like that there, and one there, and another one there. So what is she apparently doing? These things are meant to be tears. So sob is crying, right? So why is that word written in bold font? Let's have a look at her response. Dear Amy, we regret to inform you. So she is now expecting a rejection. We regret to inform you. So why is sob in bold? It emphasizes how intense her response is. Do we know intense? How strong her emotion is? That she's feeling really, really sad. You could say that she has burst into tears, is about to burst into tears. So we don't see the tears there, but look, there's a tear here in frame 3, so she's about to burst into tears. You could say that she cries out in extreme distress. What is she crying out? What? So the sob emphasizes her emotional response as she's crying out. You just need 1 mark. We go to frame 4. How does the cartoonist use a verbal clue to convey the mother's feelings in this frame? Let's go to frame 4. We're looking for a verbal clue. So verbal is in the words. Their admission staff has a cruel sense of humor. So the verbal clue is cruel. What does that tell us? That she feels that the admission staff are unkind, they are nasty, they torture the student by starting with "we regret." So how is the mother feeling? For me, the difficulty is, what if the student explains how the mother's feeling towards her daughter? So let's start with, how does she feel about the admissions staff? She is condemning them. She condemns them. She criticizes them. She blames them. So she's feeling very annoyed, irritated. Maybe she feels that they've done something wrong, so she's criticizing, critical. She's feeling very critical of the staff. What if the child answers about how she's feeling about her daughter? I don't see how that could be marked wrong, because it just says the mother's feelings. So for her daughter, she feels pity for her daughter. She feels sorrow that her daughter has been so distressed by this vicious staff member or staff members. Then we have a spelling question. How do we spell humor? That's easy enough. And now we come to the really tricky question. It doesn't matter if you are home language or FAL. You get asked about humor. Do not say something like, I didn't find this funny because I'm also applying to technicons and universities, and I think that playing a trick like the father's trick here is very nasty and I didn't find it funny. No. So rather, try to decide on what kind of humor it is. I don't think we're talking about the father's trick. I think rather we're talking about the fact that the father has played the trick. So, a kind of humor that I would suggest you look for before you look for anything else is irony. Remember, when you answer an irony question, you say that somebody, call this person X. I keep drawing people without ears at the moment. X believes something or thinks something, hopes, dreams, plans something, but Y is reality. I would always use the word but. It's for the marker. It's so that the marker sees that you get the difference between the belief and what the truth is. All right, so let's look for irony in this cartoon. You could say the first irony is that Amy believes that she's here in these two frames. She believes that she's been rejected, but in fact she has been accepted by her number one choice. You could also say that it's ironic that she is still sobbing. Now this whoop, you know when you cry and you kind of get your breath, and that's what's going on. She's crying, and the amount of air coming out is so much that she has to kind of suck it back in again. So even though she's been accepted, the shock is still so great here that she continues to cry. So it's ironic that she's left so distressed at the end of the cartoon, even though she's been accepted by the college she wanted. So you could focus on Amy. But I think you could also focus on the father. What did the father expect? Notice what he says. It seemed funnier in my head. He thought she'd laugh. He thought he was being funny. So his joke was intended, well, wasn't intended to distress his daughter, but in fact, he's really upset her. And he realizes afterwards that this actually wasn't such a funny thing to do, that this was insensitive. So at the time, he thought he was very funny, but afterwards realizes that he was insensitive. So I'd always go with irony. It's the easiest, and it's usually cartoons are ironic. If you want to go to something more difficult, then you go to satire. You are more likely to get satire in a home language paper than in an FAL paper. So let's just go over satire. Satire is criticism. I know that lots of teachers teach that satire is making fun of a serious subject. But actually, that is not a helpful way to teach. And I don't think it's entirely accurate either. So satire is criticism. Criticism of what? Of people's faults, their sins, their evil, their wickedness, their stupidity. All of those things. Now, how does satire work? It doesn't just criticize, it uses humor. What kinds of humor? Well, irony was one of the most obvious ones in satire. Can use sarcasm, make sure you understand the difference. Any kind of mockery is part of satire. And there are other kinds of humor, but let's just go with that. And then why? Because satirists are actually very serious in their intentions. A satirist wants to change people. Now, this kind of comic strip is usually not satirical. This kind of comic strip is usually about people, sort of ordinary people like you and me, and ordinary lives. And the cartoonist usually just wants to make a point about those people and those lives. So what is this cartoon about? It's about family and the kinds of ups and downs of family, the eagerness of somebody who's in grade 12 to go on and study further, and the clumsy attempt at humor by the father. That's all it is. But if you wanted to argue, at least it's all I think it is, but if you want to argue that it's satirical, then you'd have to say, what is being satirized? So the father, yes, but what about the father? Well, that he is a clumsy, my dad would have called him a clumsy oaf. Do you know that term? My father always used to call me a clumsy oaf. Somebody who's clumsy, somebody who falls over their own feet. That's a clumsy oaf. Person who puts down their glass of water and puts it right at the edge of the coaster and it falls on the floor. That clumsy idiot. So an oaf is just somebody who doesn't have much delicacy or refinement. Right, so the father is clumsy. So do I think he's being satirized? No, I think that's too harsh for this cartoon, but you could argue that this father's insensitivity is being mocked and criticized. That parents, especially the father here, but if he represents parents, they should be more sensitive to their children. Their grade 12 children are very tense and stressed about what's going to happen to them in the year after they leave school. And therefore, this is not the time to make a joke with the child, especially such a moment where the child has explained that this is her number one choice. She's terribly, terribly anxious. So it wasn't a good moment. All right, so just coming back to the question, do you think the cartoon is humorous? Try not to say no. Try to look for some kind of humor in the cartoon. And then substantiate your answer must be based on the text. You need to show why this text is humorous, not, but I wouldn't find it funny, I wouldn't have laughed. And remember, laughing out loud is only one kind of humor. So you can't say no because it's not funny to me. You need to look at this text and say, well, what is going on here? What little gentle irony, because I really don't think it's a vicious satire. Gentle irony is being explored. So I would recommend always look for irony, always. It's the most obvious thing in a cartoon, and it should lead you, I think, to an answer. So won't you look at cartoons, look at that question about humor. As I say, it doesn't matter if you're home language or FAL, you get the question, and tell me if irony doesn't work. So send in your question saying, I looked at this cartoon in this paper, and there is no irony. So come up with another suggestion, and I'll see what I can do.